The frost had melted since dawn, and the sky stayed low all day, pressing like a hand over the prairie. Elam Thatcher, thin for 14 and quieter than most, stepped down from the porch without a coat, the porch boards moaning underfoot. His breath fogged and vanished as soon as it left his mouth. In his arms, he carried the patchwork blanket stitched by his grandmother, a worn, sun-faded thing with one corner torn where the dog had chewed. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. The barn sat at the edge of their land, where the fence leaned tiredly, and the weeds had long since taken hold. Crows clustered there, watching. The air smelled of cold hay and old blood from butchering season. He heard nothing at first, just wind threading through the slats like fingers feeling their way. Then the sound came again, soft, not animal, not wind. He rounded the barn slow, boots crunching frost. And there she was, a woman lying half-curled beside the fence, her legs awkward, bare feet pale and cracked, the soles cut open like paper. She wore a buckskin dress, once beautiful, now soaked through. Her dark braid was matted and streaked with blood. Her chest rose so faintly it might have been memory. For a moment, he thought she was dead. Then her eyelids fluttered. She blinked. Elam just stood there. She didn't move. Her lips were cracked so deep they bled and scabbed over. Her fingers clenched something small, a pouch beaded in blue and red. She clutched it like a prayer. He swallowed. Do you understand me? No answer. Her gaze found him unfocused and held. He looked back toward the house. The windows glowed with firelight. His father would be shaving bullets. His mother would be steeping tea. No one would miss him for a few minutes. He knelt. She winced. Not from pain, but something deeper, like shame. I got a blanket. She didn't answer, but her eyes stayed on his. He unfolded it slow. A wind kicked dust from the porch all the way down the fence line. He laid the blanket over her shoulders. She flinched as it touched her, then grew still. She stared at him, not like a person, like something trying to remember what kindness felt like. He looked at her again. Really looked. She wasn't old. Not yet. Her face was hollowed by starvation, her collarbone sharp as a knife's edge. There were purple welts across her wrists, half covered by torn cloth. Someone had tied her once. He opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. A crow cawed overhead. She blinked again slower. Then her eyes closed. He didn't know if that meant peace or death. The wind picked up, colder now, whispering secrets he didn't understand. He backed away, stood, and returned to the house like a boy waking from a dream. That night, supper was quiet. His father cleaned the rifle twice, muttering about tracks too close to the west ridge. His mother kept her gaze on the stove. Elam didn't speak, but he kept glancing at the door as if he'd left something outside. He dreamt of breathing that came in gasps of blue beads scattered across snow. At first light, he returned. She was still there, alive, barely. The blanket steamed slightly, damp from her breath. She hadn't moved much, but the pouch had shifted closer to her chest. He brought her water in a tin cup and half a biscuit he'd hidden in his sleeve. She drank slow, blinking hard with every swallow. He whispered, "You got a name?" She didn't answer, but this time her eyes didn't wander. They fixed on him. She pointed to her chest. Tabani. Her voice was crackbone and smoke. He tried to say it back. Two, and a ghost of a smile. Then she coughed and blood dark in the blanket. "Don't die," he muttered. She looked past him toward the barn. He helped her up. Inside it smelled like horses in silence. Dust danced in beams of morning light. He made her a bed of straw in the back stall and covered her again. She curled into herself and her eyes finally closed, not from pain, but trust. He watched her for a while, then slipped out the side door, ducking low. No one saw him return. That afternoon, his father found him patching the fence with wire. "You see them tracks yesterday?" his father asked. Elam nodded. "You tell me if you see more." He nodded again, but he didn't tell him. That night, the wind shifted. The dogs didn't bark. Not once. But Elam didn't sleep. He sat up in bed, blanket wrapped around his knees. Something in his bones felt hollow, like something had been removed and not yet replaced. He rose, crept to the window. The stars were out, but the prairie didn't look right. He pressed his face to the glass. Nothing moved. Then, in the far dark, he saw them. Not riders, not torches, just shapes, still and tall and waiting. He held his breath. The barn was lit inside just faintly, a candle or a lantern someone else had lit. He slipped his boots on, heart thudding. Outside, the frost was thicker now, crunching underfoot like brittle bone. He crept around the side of the house, past the chicken shed toward the barn. The door was ajar. Inside, she sat upright, awake. Her braid was untangled. The blanket still draped over her, but her eyes were clear now. Ancient. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "You shouldn't be alive," he replied. Something passed between them then. Not words, something quieter. She reached into the pouch and pulled out a carved piece of wood. An animal, he thought. A horse or maybe a buffalo. She pressed it into his palm. "You saw me," she said. "No one does." He stared down at the figure. A breeze stirred behind them. The horses in the stalls snorted. The candle flickered. She turned her head sharply toward the east window. "What is it?" She didn't answer, but outside on the ridgeline, something shifted. Elam crossed the window. There, dark against dark. He counted 3, then 5, then 8, figures all still, all mounted, none moving, watching the barn. He stepped back, heart in his throat. "Do they want you?" he asked. She didn't move. "They want to see." "See what?" She looked at him then, not like a boy, like a question. "That you gave me the blanket," she said. He swallowed. "I just did what felt right." "That's what they're afraid of." He didn't know who she meant. Not yet, but he would. Outside, the line grew. More horses, more shadows. A stillness so deep it pressed against the wood. The prairie was holding its breath. And Elam, 14 and shivering in a barn with a woman who should have died, felt something ancient coil in his chest, like a string pulled tight by hands older than history. He stood by her side, and far across the frost, the ridge filled with watchers, waiting for dawn. When dawn came, it came slow, gray, like the prairie itself was reluctant to wake. The shapes on the ridge were gone, or maybe they'd never been there. The wind had changed direction again. Smoke from the chimney dragged east. Elam slipped out before his father woke, cutting across the frost-hardened grass toward the barn. The candle inside had burned itself to nothing. Tubani was sitting up, the blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. She looked stronger somehow, though her face was pale as morning light. He handed her a tin of warm milk he'd stolen from the kitchen, still trembling from the risk. She drank it slow, eyes fixed on him. "They'll look for me," she said. "Who?" "You're kind," she said simply. He frowned. "We're not," but she cut him off. "You think the land don't remember?" Her words carried something heavy in them, older than language. Elam didn't answer. He wanted to ask her where she came from, how far she'd walked, who hurt her, but each question felt like a door he wasn't ready to open. Instead, he asked, "What's in the pouch?" She glanced down, fingers curling over it. "Home," she whispered. "All that's left." Outside, the frost began to melt. The world softened just enough for footprints to form, one set leading from the barn to the house. He didn't notice them then, but his father would later. By noon, the sky bruised purple with an early storm. Wind howled low, like something calling from far off. His mother stood at the window, her face drawn. "Who's been in the barn?" she asked suddenly. Elam froze, his spoon clattering against the bowl. "What?" "Blankets missing. Footprints too small to be your father's." He looked down at his soup. "Maybe the dogs dragged something in." She didn't press, but her eyes lingered on him too long. That night, thunder rolled over the prairie, distant but growing. The wind beat the shutters till they screamed. Elam waited for the sound of his parents' door closing, then slipped out again. The rain hit him sideways, cold and sharp. He could barely see 10 feet ahead. When he reached the barn, the lantern inside flickered once, then died. "Tubani," he called softly. A whisper came from the dark. "Here." She was standing now, tall, steadier than before. The blanket had fallen away, revealing a faded mark burned into her shoulder, not brand, not scar, but something carved long ago. She turned so he could see. "They'll come tonight," she said. "For you?" he asked. "For what you did." Lightning split the sky, and for an instant, he saw them, the riders again, their shapes clearer now, outlines cut from shadow and smoke, horses silent beneath them. They didn't move like men. They didn't move like anything alive. He backed up. "What are they?" "Memory," she said. "Yours and mine." He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't listen. The barn doors rattled, the hinges groaning. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of earth after lightning. She took his hand, her palm burning hot despite the cold. "You gave me warmth," she whispered. "Now I give you truth." The riders stopped just beyond the fence. Rain hissed down, steaming off their cloaks. One lifted an arm, skeletal beneath the dripping fabric, pointing straight toward Elam. Tubani squeezed his hand tighter. "Don't look away," she said. The ground trembled, not from thunder, but from something older, something buried deep. The horses stamped once, twice, and then the world went still. Every drop of rain hung motionless, suspended midair. The only sound left was breathing, his and hers. Then, just as suddenly, everything moved again. The riders were gone. The rain fell, hard and real. Tubani's grip loosened. She stumbled back, her strength spent. He caught her, lowering her gently to the straw. "You'll be all right," he said, though he didn't believe it. She looked at him one last time, eyes shining like wet flint. "Tell them," she whispered. "Tell them what?"